I slapped him. Hard. Right there in the middle of my bookshop. No hesitation, no apology. But what I didn't expect was that he'd come back. And from that return, everything began to shift off the tracks I'd spent years building. You won't believe what followed. A moment that seemed like nothing cracked open a truth I'd buried, that I was still alive, still a woman, still capable of being wanted. Stay with me. Because if you think love is only for the young, you might be missing the most precious chapter of your life. If you've ever felt something real at the wrong time, but the right feeling, comment "I've been there." And don't forget to hit subscribe for more real-life stories that stay with you long after they end. It was the middle of July, humid quiet, with that heavy Florida stillness that makes time feel slow. I had just finished shelving a box of used novels when I saw him walking by the front window, earbuds in, delivering packages like he always did. "Eli," I called out from the door of my bookshop. He turned, smiled like a boy who didn't know better. "Hey, Miss Evelyn," he said, stepping inside, dragging a package behind him. "Got your delivery right here." I crossed my arms. "And the money you owe me from the last two." He scratched his head, half smiling. "My check's coming. Next week, I promise. You promised that last week, too." He gave that grin, charming to some infuriating to me. "If I can't pay next time, I'll offer myself as collateral." I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me," he winked. "I'm just saying, you might be surprised what skinny guys are good at." I slapped him. It was instinctive, sharp, loud, and it made both of us freeze. A customer browsing in the back dropped a book. Eli touched his cheek, stunned more by my reaction than the pain. "I'm old enough to be your mother," I said, my voice like glass. "Get out." He stepped back, still holding the package. "You're crazy," I glared. "I'm serious." He dropped the box by the door and muttered as he walked away. "Crazy old lady. Thought I was joking." He didn't look back, and neither did I, at least not right then. But that night, I sat on the porch with a glass of wine and silence all around me, thinking about the fire in his eyes and the way mine hadn't burned like that in years. It was late afternoon, and the silence inside the shop felt different that day, heavier, like the air itself was holding its breath. I hadn't seen Eli in days. No calls, no deliveries. And truthfully, I'd almost started to believe he wouldn't come back. I was in the back room. The store was open technically, but not really. Lights were dim, blinds drawn halfway, front door unlocked out of habit. I wasn't expecting anyone, and I certainly wasn't expecting him. I hadn't known Eli long, maybe a year tops. He delivered packages all over the neighborhood, part-time, hustling for tips and saving up for something he never talked about. Tall, thin, always a little too confident for someone with so little to his name. But there was something about him, a charm he didn't earn but carried naturally. Me, I was 50, a widow for 8 years. I ran a dusty little bookshop in a town that hadn't changed since the 90s. Most days, I went home to silence warmed-up leftovers and fell asleep to old reruns on cable. I hadn't been really touched in so long that my skin had forgotten how to react. That day, I wasn't thinking of Eli or anyone. I was just tired of feeling empty. I was sitting on a low stool facing the wall, my skirt hiked up over my knees. One hand clutched the edge of the seat for balance. The other moved steadily between my legs, fingers wrapped around a small pink vibrator. It buzzed softly, a hum too low to hear beyond the shelves. My head was tilted back. My eyes were closed. My lips parted slightly, not for sound, but for release. I didn't hear the knock, didn't hear the door creak open, didn't hear the footsteps coming closer, until it happened. The door behind me pushed open gently, but enough. Miss Evelyn Eli's voice stopped dead mid-sentence. I turned mid-movement. We locked eyes. His face shifted from confusion to realization to stunned silence. Time fractured. I gasped. A sharp, involuntary sound escaped my throat. My body jerked back like I'd been electrocuted. The toy fell to the floor with a muted thud. I scrambled, pulling my skirt down, tripping over a box. My hands fumbled for something to grab, anything to steady myself. He stepped back fast, as if he'd walked in on a crime scene. I didn't know you were back here, I called. His voice was shaking. So was mine. Though I hadn't spoken yet, I stood. My legs were trembling. My heart pounded so loudly I could hear it in my ears. I looked at him mortified, unable to find a place to hide my body or my shame. My face was burning, not just from embarrassment, but from the terrifying realization that someone had seen me. Not the me behind the register, not the widow with polite smiles, but this version, the one I kept buried, the one I hated needing. I didn't say anything. I walked past him, slowly refusing to meet his eyes. He didn't move. Out front, I opened the drawer, grabbed a white envelope I kept for rent cash, and laid it flat on the counter. "Take it," I said. Quiet clipped. He came forward, glanced at the envelope. "What is it?" "Your debt." "Cleared." He hesitated, then opened it. $500 in crisp bills. He looked at me again, longer this time. But there was no grin, no joke, just something slower, sharper, maybe even gentle. "You know," he said quietly, "people who talk the most about morals usually sleep in the coldest beds." And then he left, leaving me alone. Not just in the shop, but inside myself, with a pulse still racing and a silence louder than any judgment he could have spoken. 2 days after the incident, I sent a text. "Are you free tonight?" It was short, cold on the surface, but I rewrote it 3 times before hitting send. Eli didn't reply right away. I almost regretted it the moment I saw the message leave my screen. But just before 9 p.m., I heard the familiar knock. 3 short raps, then a pause. I opened the door. He stood there in a hoodie, hands in his pockets, avoiding my eyes. "You said you wanted to talk." I stepped aside. He came in. I didn't lock the door behind him. The air inside my house felt heavier than usual. The lights were low. The TV was on in the background, muted. I didn't offer tea, or wine, or excuses. We stood in silence for a moment, as if neither of us knew how to begin, though we both knew why he was here. "I don't expect anything," I finally said. "You don't owe me." I know," he cut in softly. "You don't have to explain." Another silence. Then, without planning it, I reached out and touched his arm. Just a brush. But enough. He looked at me. Really looked. And for the first time, I didn't see the boy with quick comebacks. I saw something more still, more aware. He stepped closer. There were no declarations, no questions, just the slow movement of 2 people too lonely for too long. His lips touched mine, tentative at first, then firmer. One of his hands found my lower back, the other tangled gently in my hair. I didn't pull away. We didn't speak. Not when he lifted my shirt over my head. Not when I helped him out of his hoodie. Not even when our skin met for the first time in my dimly lit bedroom where I had slept alone for 8 years. It wasn't beautiful, not like in the movies, but it was real, breathless, raw. That night, we didn't fall asleep in each other's arms. He left before midnight, didn't kiss me goodbye, but he came back the next night, and the next. We never talked about what we were doing, never labeled it, but it became a rhythm. He would arrive late, sometimes with a bag of fast food, sometimes empty-handed. We would eat, or not, talk, or not. But always eventually he'd reach for me, and I would let him. At first it felt like survival, like patching a hole in a leaking roof. But then I started to notice things. The way his hands lingered longer. The way he listened when I talked about my late husband quietly, without judgment. One night, I caught myself waiting for him at the window, like a teenager watching headlights. I hated that part of me, because he never said he cared, never asked how I felt. He just showed up. And maybe for a while that was enough. It started with a feeling, nothing loud. Just small changes, how he stayed a little less long. How he stopped texting first. How he started to smell faintly of unfamiliar perfume. I told myself not to spiral, that I was imagining things, that men his age didn't do forever anyway. But on a Saturday afternoon, as I was carrying groceries back from the corner market, I saw him. Eli, on his motorbike, and her a girl young enough to still wear glitter on her eyelids and take selfies mid-ride. Her hands clutched his waist, his hand draped casually over her thigh. They didn't see me, but I saw enough. The laughter on his face was not the tired, weary kind I got. It was light. It was easy. I stood frozen on the sidewalk, a bag of apples slipping from my arms, rolling into the gutter. That night, I didn't turn on the lights in the house. I sat by the window with the blinds cracked open glass of wine in hand, the air inside thick with silence. I didn't cry, but my chest felt hollow. He arrived after 10, hoodie on helmet in hand, that same lazy smirk on his face like nothing had changed. I didn't stand. I didn't smile. "Who is she?" I asked, voice low. He froze, then shrugged. "Just someone I know." "Someone you know," I repeated. "You had your hand on her leg." He scratched his neck, looked away. "It's not like that. You think I'm stupid." "No," he said, then added quickly, "I mean, it's not serious." I stood now. My voice didn't rise, but it didn't need to. "Let me be clear," I said, meeting his eyes. "You want to play games with girls your age, fine. But not while you're still living off my food, my bed, my money." He looked stunned for a moment, as if he hadn't expected me to put it like that. "If I see her again," I added, "if I even hear her name, you won't get another cent, or another night here." He nodded slowly. "Yes, ma'am. I understand." But the fire in his eyes had dimmed. He wasn't angry. He wasn't remorseful either. Just distant. And that scared me more than any fight ever could. It started as nausea, then headaches, then an odd sense that my body wasn't quite mine anymore. I blamed the heat, the stress, the late nights, but the feeling wouldn't leave. My sense of taste changed. I cried at a dog food commercial, so I bought a test, alone, quietly, tucked it under a box of crackers, and handed it to the cashier without meeting her eyes. Back home, I waited until Eli had left for the night. Then I sat in the bathroom. 2 lines. Clear. Bold. Pregnant. At 50. I sat on the edge of the tub, head in my hands, trying to make sense of the impossible. At my age, after all these years. But beneath the panic, something else stirred. Wonder. A heartbeat, maybe. A second chance? I waited 2 days to tell him. Eli showed up that evening, like he always did, tossing his backpack in the corner, flopping onto the couch with his usual yawn. I handed him a glass of water and said without drama, "I'm pregnant." He blinked, then blinked again. "You're what I nodded." I took 3 tests. He stood, paced, rubbed his face. "I don't know what to say," he said finally. "I didn't think this could happen, but I'm not going anywhere." I believed him, not because he said it like a promise, but because he said it like a truth he hadn't prepared for, but was willing to accept. Then came the whispers. Small-town gossip moves faster than any headline. Within a week, the local pharmacy clerk had accidentally told her cousin, who told the florist, who told my sister. The phone rang. I let it go to voicemail. Then it rang again. And again. I answered on the 3rd try. "Evelyn." My younger sister hissed through the line, "Have you lost your damn mind? Hello to you too. You're pregnant. At your age, with him, you're humiliating the family." I didn't know this was about the family. It is when people at church are whispering that my sister got knocked up by a delivery boy, half her age. I'm not asking for your approval. You're destroying what little respect we have left. I hung up. Later that evening, I sat out on the porch. The sky was purple with evening, the kind of soft twilight that feels too calm to hold all the noise inside your head. Eli came out, balancing a bowl of hot soup and a spoon. He handed it to me without a word. I took a sip. Chicken and rice. Simple. Familiar. He sat beside me, legs stretched out on the steps. After a minute, he said, "They don't get to live your life for you." It was quiet after that. But in that quiet, something anchored itself. The next morning, I woke before sunrise, went into the bathroom, placed my hand on my stomach, and whispered, "I'm keeping you. Not for him. Not in defiance. But because I could." After that night, something changed. Not with big words, not with declarations, but in the small things. Eli stopped sleeping in. He started waking up before me. Some mornings, I'd find him in the kitchen, barefoot, stirring oatmeal on the stove, humming softly to himself. He stopped tossing his backpack in the corner. He started placing it by the door. He stopped just showing up. He started being present. There was no ceremony to it. No, "I'm trying now" speech. Just actions. He'd sweep the front of the shop before we opened, fix the squeaky door that had annoyed me for years, wipe down the dusty shelves without being asked. One day, he even walked 3 miles in the rain to get me oranges. I hadn't even mentioned craving them. I'd only looked at them a little too long at the store. He noticed. That's when I started noticing too. Not just the weight of his body beside mine, but the way he curled protectively in his sleep. The way he talked to the growing baby under my skin, as if it could already hear him. "Hey, little one," he whispered one night, resting his cheek against my belly. "I hope you come out strong. Your mom's already carrying the weight of 2 people." I didn't say anything. I just lay there, hand on his hair, tears slipping down my cheeks. Because for the first time, I wasn't loving a boy. I was witnessing a man being built one quiet gesture at a time. No one taught him how. There was no manual, but somehow he knew to hold my hand during every doctor's visit, to sit silently when I didn't feel like talking, to laugh with me when I cried over spilled soup because hormones made everything feel bigger. He didn't always know what to say, but he stayed, and that mattered more. It wasn't a fairy tale. Some days he was still impatient. Some nights He came too late and forgot to plug in the baby monitor, but he never forgot me. One evening after dinner, as we stood doing dishes together, he looked over and said, "You know, I never really knew what a home was." I looked up, "But I think I do now." He didn't wait for me to respond. He just kept rinsing plates. But I leaned over, kissed his cheek, and whispered, "Me too." It happened on a rainy Tuesday in March. The contractions started at dawn, gentle at first like waves pulling back before crashing forward again. By 8 a.m., I was gripping the side of the bed, breath-shallow knuckles white. Eli didn't panic. He moved with quiet purpose, bags packed car keys in hand, his phone on speaker as he drove one hand and called the clinic with the other. "You're doing great," he whispered over and over. "Just keep breathing. I've got you." I didn't speak. I was too focused on the pain, on the storm of emotion swelling inside me, not just from labor, but from the unbelievable fact I was about to become a mother again. At 51. Hours blurred. The hospital room was cold. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. Machines beeped. I screamed and I cried, and I squeezed Eli's hand so hard I thought I might break it. And then at 2:12 p.m., the room fell quiet. A cry, high, piercing, alive. Our son. They laid him on my chest, and he looked like everything I had ever been afraid to hope for. Eli cried. I did too. Not because it was picture perfect, but because it was real. After we got home, life didn't slow down. There were diapers, bottles, nights where the baby wouldn't stop crying, and days where Eli looked like he hadn't slept in weeks. But there was laughter too. One day, I caught our neighbor, an old woman who used to frown every time she passed my house, smiling as she watched Eli push the stroller down the sidewalk. Another time, a teenage girl from the coffee shop knocked on our door with a box of hand-me-down baby clothes. "We all talk," she said. "But now, most of us just admire you." The whispers didn't stop completely, but something had shifted. They saw Eli changing diapers in the back of the bookstore. They saw me glowing with something more than just hormones. They saw a baby loved. And love, when seen quietly, silences judgment. One afternoon, I sat on the porch, holding my son against my chest, watching Eli mow the overgrown lawn shirt half soaked in sweat. He turned and grinned at me, wiping his brow. And in that moment, I realized I wasn't the old woman who had made a mistake. I was the woman who had chosen life. And now I was finally truly home. I never imagined I'd fall in love again. Not at 50. Not with someone like Eli. Not in the middle of a sleepy Florida town while running a forgotten little bookstore. But love doesn't care about calendars. It doesn't care that you already buried a husband, or that your hair is turning silver, or that you no longer believe in happy endings. It just walks in, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with a backpack and no clue what it's doing. But it stays. And over time, you begin to realize love isn't loud. It isn't a grand gesture or a perfect photo. Sometimes it's soup at the porch, a repaired drawer, a hand reaching for yours when no one else is watching. Eli never said forever, but every day he chose me, and I chose him. Not because I needed to be saved, but because I finally let myself be seen, and loved anyway. Our son turned 1 last week. He walks now, wobbly arms out, always chasing the dog's tail. His laughter fills the bookstore some mornings. And when Eli lifts him in the air, both of them laughing, I feel a peace I never thought I'd earn. People still whisper sometimes. But you know what? Their whispers no longer matter, because love, once lived fully, leaves no space for shame. So, if you're listening to this and wondering if it's too late, if life already passed you by, let me tell you, love isn't always early, but it never forgets the way to you. And maybe the ending you feared is just the beginning you needed all along. If this story touched something in you, maybe a memory, maybe a hope you thought you'd buried, don't leave in silence. Share your thoughts in the comments. And if you want more stories that stay with you long after they end, hit that subscribe button. We're building a space here for people who still believe in second chances. And if you're one of them, you're exactly where you belong.